Then Abraham lifted his eyes and looked, and there behind him was a ram caught in a thicket by its horns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of the place, "The Lord will provide," as it is said to this day, "In the mount of the Lord it shall be provided."
Then the angel of the Lord called to Abraham a second time out of heaven. That's interesting. A second time. And he said, "By myself I have sworn, says the Lord, because you have done this thing and have not withheld your son, your only son. Blessing, I will bless you, and multiplying, I will multiply your descendants as the stars of the heaven and as the sand which is on the seashore. And your descendants shall possess the gate of their enemies." And
I mean, that's nice of God to continue his promise. He already promised. If Abraham hadn't offered his son, am I to presume that the covenant that God made with Abraham earlier would have been broken? Or did God just really promise the same thing again?
Right. Yeah, because originally, this is the interesting thing about the sacrifice. Originally, God's covenant was for Abraham to walk with God in faith. There was nothing about sacrificing a son that was part of the covenant specifically. In fact, the covenant was rather vague. So let's say Abraham was like, "No, I'm not going to sacrifice Isaac. That I'm not about that." Like, did that mean he broke the covenant? Because that wasn't really part of it, was it?
I didn't think it was.
Right. But it's interesting to me as well that it is this final test in which God is like, "Okay, now I know that, you have faith in me and that you're going to do what I need you to do." But how did God not know? Right?
Yeah.
Isn't he supposed to be all-knowing, all-seeing?
My guess is not yet.
Right. And that's what I feel.
Those traits come along later, I presume, right?
Right.
He gradually gets more power as the books go on.
That's 100% true. He gets more power and he gets more and more removed from humanity.
Right.
Yeah. And that's not just a biblical tradition. That happens all throughout history. God started out as a deity that lived, on the mountaintops. And then he went from the mountaintops to the heavens, and then from the heavens to the high heavens. And then once we discovered that there was no firmament, then they're like, "Oh, well, he's out in space with the stars." And then once we could explore outer space, we go, "No, he's on a whole different plane of existence."
Yeah, right.
It's like the more we are able to explore and realize God's not there, the more we have to assume that, well, God is in some other location we don't have access to.
Right.
Nevertheless, I don't see this as being necessary to be part of the covenant. God already made a covenant with Abraham.
Right.
Abraham has already agreed to be a party in that covenant. I would have been like, "Nah, I ain't going to sacrifice my son. We had a covenant. This wasn't part of it. Sorry that you asked me to do something outside of the covenant, but suck it up, God."
Yeah.
The other thing too, and you brought it up before, it seems strange that like the blessing of Abraham is to multiply his descendants. Other than the fact that the ancient people practiced a form of ancestor care, meaning they brought provisions to the tombs of their dead ancestors to sustain them in the afterlife. Other than that, I can see of no way in which this actually benefits Abraham.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's all about their legacy, right? So it benefits him in so much as he thinks it will benefit him.
I had one thought.
Yeah.